So happy new year guys, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another One Piece review. This time we're covering manga chapter 1170. And I feel like with this chapter and the recent episode we got to cap off the Egghead Island arc in the finale, I'll get to that in a second, but that this is the ending of an old era and April 5th is the beginning of a new era. But Toei Animation ended strong with a very strong finale to the Egghead Island arc. All in all, I would say it's probably the best animated arc that we've ever gotten. Like, I know it's a hot take considering we got Wano, but I will throw even Wano into that mix and say Egghead Island is hard to debate. It's like top 2 as far as adapting the manga. This is really up there. So you could just imagine what we're going to get with Elbaf. The main takeaways, obviously, is death to Saturn, of course, because the animators did a really good job with this scene of not only making it intense, but also twisted at the same time. Literally, much like Saturn's figure, as he was literally reduced to a skeleton, with the point of Emu's power and how intense, insane it is. I did find it interesting though, before Saturn met his maker at the hands of Emu, we had one asshole replaced by another asshole as far as the Gorosei, because in comes Garling Figureland, walking like a boss. So he was walking up to the rest of the Gorosei. Oh, by the way, I'm taking Saturn's place now. Did you see how the other Gorosei reacted? They were not happy about this. I said this before when this came out in the manga. I definitely see some inner turmoil going on in the world government. He's apparently taking supervision over York, which, by the way, I included that in the anime, where York actually referenced the fact that, Vegapunk pulled one over on her because she realizes now that she's not the only satellite that's out there. Speaking of satellites, looks like Edison merged with the rest of them to keep Vegapunk or the satellites alive, and they got into contact with Weatheria. So I don't know where that's going, but we had the Straw Hats along with the Giants, along with Lilf and Barney, toasted it up to a banquet. You got Robin finally excited because she's going to meet Sol again on Elbaf, so that's teasing one thing. Is Usopp finally going to see Elbaf alongside Luffy. There was a focus on that scene, more specifically with Robin, Usopp, and Luffy. You also had the moment with Kuma and Barney reminiscing about Kuma and everything that Kuma did. I just thought it was a great touch to cap off their characters. One of the MVPs of Egghead Island, and that being Barney. Like I said, they're already setting you up for what's to come on Elbaf. Did you see the ending? Did you see the post-credits with Scopper at the end? I'm telling you, man, they're not wasting any time with the spoilers. So for what's to come, even before they gave you the trailer, which leads me to what we saw at Jumpfesta, the teaser trailer we got for Elbaf. Now, clearly, we got the visual. So the visual's pretty much hinting at Season 2 starting on April 5th in 2026, which is ridiculous to even say that when we consider how long One Piece is overall. But the overall episode number isn't going to change, nor the series itself. What's changing is the format of how we view the anime. Like that was a work in progress last year. This is something they've been slow burning here, and if you really think about it, like not just One Piece, but media and especially streaming is going to look vastly different a year from now, especially with Netflix purchasing Warner Bros. I mean, that's going to look vastly different a year from now. So it's not just One Piece. In the same token, it's kind of cool because they're using a seasonal format, and we've often wondered what they could do if they're given a lot more time to produce these episodes. Well, we're going to find out come April 5th. And to me, when it comes to the trailer, it's clear as day that they already have some episodes from the Lego block country phase of Elbaf already in the vault. This is what I said about when they had the 6-month hiatus. They already had episodes in the vault ready for Egghead Part 2. So it's the same thing here. If you look at the banquet scene, that really hits home because it really is the ending of an old era, and come April 5th, it begins a new era. So I'll get into the message by Oda when it comes to like Jumpfesta by the end of this chapter, because really there wasn't too much that really hinted at what Oda said. So I'll leave that to the end. On the cover page, we've got a cover request with Jinbei, a train clerk, handing out bento to Luffy, Nami, Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Chopper, and Robin. It's interesting too because everyone except Robin are pretty much the age of kindergarten, like they should be in middle school or something. But Robin looks like a young teenager. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but did anybody catch the t-shirt that Robin was wearing? Other than the fact that it's Robin, but that t-shirt, to me, looked very similar to the one that Vice Admiral Dole wears, only take away the Marine logo. I don't know. It looked very similar. Then again, it could just be me wanting an interaction between the two on Elbaf, but I did find it very similar to the one that Vice Admiral Doll wears. And with the way this chapter starts off, when it comes to Ragnir, it's clear as day that Oda is using the Millionaire as a reference, which is the hammer of Thor. Loki's dodging Rainier, but Loki's trying to get to the chest so he can eat it, but the Ragnir is preventing him. Oda's referencing the Millionaire, and it's looking like it's testing Loki to see if he's worthy. And in fact, Harold goes on to back that up when he says, "Oh, it's no use, Loki. You won't be able to eat it because the Ragnir hasn't deemed anybody worthy." But before he's able to approach Loki, in comes Shanks and Scarpa with an attack coated in Conqueror's Haki, or an advanced Conqueror's Haki. And this scene is pretty much done to re-establish what we already figured out. Like, Conqueror's Haki is like the kryptonite for the Holy Knights. If you keep coating your attacks in Conqueror's Haki, eventually it'll chip away before he's driven into a corner, which is what we saw with Summers in the present when it comes to Scarpa. Like, we saw him having trouble regenerating. In fact, we don't even know what's going on right now. Shanks is like, "Oh, Scarpa, you're familiar with the weakness of the Holy Knight." So that's Shanks kind of re-establishing, yeah, that is the weakness of the Holy Knights. So I remember how many times the Holy Knights tried to take you back. So we get a flashback panel of when the Holy Knights were asking for Shanks, and Scarpa's like, "Oh, we sent them packing. I sliced them up." I'm pretty sure Rayleigh did too, since he would have been on board as well. Knights tried to get Shanks back, and multiple times they failed due to Scarpa and Rayleigh on board. But then Shanks goes on to say, "Scarpa, I want to save Harold." And then Scarpa responds like, "Wait, weren't you the one telling me that it's hopeless?" And then Scarpa goes on to say, "No, we need to let the youth handle this." I'm kidding. He pretty much goes on to say, "No, we need to leave this up to Loki now." So we go to Loki, and immediately Loki's just pretty much had enough at this point. The Ragnir throws itself at Loki again, and Loki is trying to hit a home run like Mark McGuire, but he ends up pulling a Gohan and snapping the Z sword. In this case, he snaps his own hammer in striking the Ragnir. Although I do find it interesting, speaking of which, the Ragnir following this, pretty much we see its final form after this, and its final form is, drumroll, it's a squirrel. And I didn't see that coming, but then again, this is One Piece, so I can't be too shocked. Oda definitely took inspiration from the Millionaire that Thor uses, but Oda added his twist in being able to have Ragnir transform into a squirrel. But the end result is trying to deem Loki worthy. And not to fast forward or anything, but there is a scene later on where the squirrel kind of lets Loki eat the devil fruit. Meanwhile, you got Harold is like striking away at the guards, and he's keeping Shanks and Scarpa at bay. He's using this chance to like approach Loki, but before he can even do that, get there, Loki is already on the ball and he's eating the devil fruit, and we actually get a glimpse of Loki's hand. Granted, it's very small because it's Loki's hand, but he scoffs it down, and immediately he begins transforming into his own form. I mean, I don't know if he's going to have a hybrid form reveal, but talk about Kaido vibes right there. King Harold arrives, is like, "Did you eat that?" But King Harold tries to attack. It doesn't work because Loki immediately counters, first obliterating Harold, but as he's reforming, Loki in his own form grabs a hold of Harold, and you see the silhouette, you see the shadow of his own form, which I thought was pretty cool. Obviously, Oda's not going to show that until we get to see Luffy and Loki team up in their zone forms in the present. Loki immediately switches back to his base form, and then with Ragnir in hand like a boss, he coats it in Conqueror's Haki and just smashes King Harold. Again, he's still reforming, but obviously you see it's taking its toll. After this, there's definitely a cut in the action because we see both of them huffing and puffing, and Loki's telling Harold, "Hey, you come to your senses now." So clearly there was a cut, but King Harold's like, "It won't last. I'm beyond redemption at this point." And Loki finally realizing you were being controlled, weren't you? Harold is telling Loki, "You have what it takes to lead Elbaf." And then Loki responds, "You're the worst, having your son." And I like this part where King Harold is thanking Loki for what he did for Ida before she died. So, and because King Harold was touched by how much he loved her. So Loki charges in, and as he does, he's like, "I'll never forgive you for this." And then King Harold's like, I love you too. And immediately he strikes King Harold as he does, and I love this touch by Oda. He brings down that bolt of lightning to strike Oda's castle. I thought it was a great touch. You see the shading on this panel with Oda where Loki hits his own father with the Ragnir to deliver the final blow and put a stop to his father once and for all. You also see the Haki splashes as well, so I thought that was a really cool panel. And then Loki just outbursts in sobbing, and he's remembering King Harold's words, like, the only thing that matters is securing Elbaf's future, which is going to be the theme for 2026 because we know Loki and Hardin, alongside Luffy, are going to bring about that change. That's how Oda ends the chapter. I'm going to be honest, I was kind of expecting Oda to like wrap up the flashback and bring us to present time before the end of this chapter, but Oda going to wait until the next chapter. Now, I will say, with this, there's a possibility of Oda giving us a couple of tidbits of information when it comes to like Shanks, because he's also a part of this flashback, so it may not be over just yet. Oda could just skip back to the present and end the flashback in the next chapter, so, and not just address what happened with Shanks whatsoever, although I think he will, because considering like Loki has a hatred for Shanks and needs to reveal why that is. Oda's going to have Loki pull an Itachi and keep the truth to himself about what he did to like try and save Elbaf, but just like to protect his father's image. He's not going to let anybody know, which would explain why Jarl never mentioned anything, why Scopper never mentioned anything considering he was there. The only question unanswered, what happens with Shanks, because he's in this scenario as well. So Oda made his statement at Jumpfesta. 3 bullet points I took from this message. Number 1 was about the live action and him confirming the fact that season 3 is already being filmed as we speak. So, but that's not really a surprise when you consider the first trailer that we got for season 2. It confirmed that season 3 was already greenlit. He goes on to clarify that season 3 will 100% focus on the full Alabasta arc. So they're going to try and wrap up the Alabasta arc in season 3. That's going to be a tough test. Second thing is what he mentioned about the One Piece film. And we got this mentioned last year at Jumpfesta, but Oda kind of like reaffirms there is a One Piece film, a new One Piece film in the works. He says he can't speak too much about it. When it comes to the One Piece film in the works, things are not progressing as smoothly as he would like. Well, I'm assuming that's because the anime just got done animating the Egghead Island arc, and now are about to go into Elbaf. So you can't have it both ways here. Which would you rather have? Oda's hyping this movie up, but let's be real here, there's a good chance this could very well be the last One Piece movie that we get, considering where we're at in the story. I don't think that's something that needs to be rushed, but it could also explain why they're taking a seasonal format, as well as obviously the pacing issues with the manga. And finally, he goes on to address what the future holds when it comes to the manga in 2026. So the main takeaways is the manga will return to the present along with Luffy and the Straw Hats on Elbaf. That we know. But he also states, just when your perspective on Elbaf shifts, boom, it ends. He says it will end with a big flashy finish. Who does that remind you of when you hear that? I'm just saying. So Oda's stating that there's a possibility Elbaf ending within this year. Then he goes on to clarify, following this, things will get intense, leading into the island that only Roger reached. I'm assuming referring to Laughdale. We're going to Laughdale this soon. Either that or he's referencing Lodestar. But then Oda goes on to clarify the man marked with flames will make an appearance in 2026. So that's something he confirmed. Then to also hype things up, he goes on to say, in addition to this, 2 people will meet for the first time ever that have never come face to face, that will cross paths. He preferences this will be a festival of encounters. The story from this point on will move a lightning fast pace. Ahead lies a festival. He mentions this twice when summarizing the manga what's to come this year. So I don't know, maybe just me, but the way he's referencing like festival, I don't know about anybody else, but a festival of encounters sounds like a pretty sick name for a future arc. I'm just saying. So I wonder if there's something to this, because Oda is making it clear that he's dead set on ending Elbaf before the end of this year, before the end of 2026, which to me is kind of a tall order. Now, I can see this because the way the pacing worked when we first arrived on Elbaf was lightning quick. Before we cut into King Harold's flashback, look at the pacing that we got at the beginning of Elbaf. So I don't doubt that for a second. And I wasn't expecting Elbaf to be a 4-year arc like Wano. But that, to me, like considering everything that Oda has to wrap up when it comes to Elbaf, either two things are crystal clear. Either Oda's going to do what I said initially and bundle all these loose ends and tie them into Elbaf, or because he can't have one after the other in between Elbaf. If he's talking about lightning fast pacing and ending Elbaf this year, a lot of elements come into Elbaf, and the fact that he used the big flashy finish tells me it's not just the Straw Hats and it's not just the Holy Knights, the only outsiders that are going to be coming into Elbaf. But I wouldn't be shocked, and I'll be the first to say I told you so. Although I will say things could change at a drop of a dime, so it's all well and dandy that Oda says this now, but things could change 6 months from now. We don't know. But he does go on to preference the fact that he's getting older, so that's why he's going to have to amp up the pacing, because he realizes this can't last forever. And considering the fact that Oda's referencing his age and the fact we are in the final saga, so it's not that far-fetched. The man marked by flames will appear. 2 questions. 1, is that going to be on shore, or is he coming to Elbaf? Because it's one or the other at this point. Or is the man marked by flames someone we have never met, but will meet as somebody else with this first encounter? I do have a question about this. When he says that 2 people will meet for the first time that have never crossed paths, is he talking about in what we've seen, that 2 characters that we've never seen cross paths, that have crossed paths off screen? Or if you take that statement and run with it to push your own narrative, this is why I'm asking, like, does that mean like this is 2 characters that we've never seen cross paths, or is it 2 characters that have crossed paths but we haven't seen it in the story? So which is it? I find it very interesting that the reasoning that this is turned into one of the reasons why the anime is about to become seasonal as of April 5th is because of the pacing of the manga. But now all of a sudden Oda is like, he's amping up the pacing to a lightning speed to which we've never seen before. So we can make our speculations about who these 2 characters that are going to meet for the first time are, but it depends on what the context is. Let what you guys think in the comments below. Like I said, with the ending of episode 1155, and with the way that Oda worded this statement at Jumpfesta, it really is the ending of an old era and the beginning of a new. And like I said at the start, it's something we're going to have to get used to with a seasonal format for One Piece. But like I said before, if this leads to better quality, I'm not going to argue. So those are my thoughts, but there's been a lot to talk about considering there's been a lot of One Piece news to come over this past week. A new era on April 5th, and I can't wait to see what Oda has in store. That's going to do it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, you guys know what to do. Hit that thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' support. Take it easy, guys. Bye.